What's up, gamers? How are we today? So for those of you who might not know me, I am Tara, and I watch an aggressive amount of movies. For the past few years, I've been counting down my top 15 on my various social medias, mostly Instagram. So recently, I was planning out my list, as per usual, to post on the gram, and someone said to me, why would you not just make this a video so that innocent people don't have to scroll through your 30 Instagram stories? They didn't say it exactly like that, but like that's the vibe I was getting. I respect it. So that's okay. We figured we'd try out this format, you know, give her a little bit of a whirl. So here we are. If you hate this format, please don't tell me. I'm not good with criticism and I don't want to know. Thank you. With a few things before I start. Oh, that's why the lighting's weird. This is a spoiler-free list, so I will be divulging a little bit into the plot with all of them just to give like a super brief summary. If you'd rather go into these totally blind, I get you, I feel you, we are one and the same. So I have a letterboxd list in my description that has not only the top 15 of 2020, but just all my 2020 movies ranked. Alright, number 15. Saint Maud, directed by Rose Glass. This is a hard movie to describe without giving away any key plot points, so just the super basis of the story is we follow Maud, who is some kind of live-in nurse, and she is hired to be a private care nurse for an older retired dancer named Amanda, who has, I believe, stage 4 lymphoma. So Maud is taking care of her, and that's her job. And a lot of the story revolves around their relationship and the dynamic between the two of them. I don't obviously want to give any more away because it's a lot more than that, but that's just kind of the super basic plot. Morfydd Clark as Maud she was absolutely brilliant. Her eccentric ways shone through in ways that were almost clumsy and unintentional, but were obviously anything but. She's a very fascinating character, and one I can't even imagine how you'd begin to, you know, as an actor, start the prep work for that. It was perfect, and it was very creepy. Like Maud is not like a sweet, fun girl. Like she's kind of weird. I mess with her. I'm a little weird, but like, you know, she's a little like, okay, I'm a little scared. So it was really great. Definitely worth checking out if you are a spooky pal. Number 14 is Spree, directed by Eugene Kotlyarenko. This movie is the epitome of fun. Spree follows our protagonist, Kurt Kunkel. Yes, that is his name. Yes, it's horrible. And yes, it fits the character perfectly. So Kurt is a rideshare driver in LA, and he's looking for his big breakout as the next internet celebrity or influencer, whatever you want to call it. His problem is that he is so strange, awkward, cringy, and weird that he can't. One night, Kurt is doing his typical rideshare stuff, and he basically gets an idea of, you know, what to live stream to get more views, to get more people interested in his online profile and just him as a person, to be an influencer. And I'm gonna leave you at that. So Kurt is played by Joe Keery. You probably know him as Steve from Stranger Things. This is a totally different character than Steve, obviously. This is, without a doubt, a film that doesn't take itself super seriously, which is probably why, even though it was released so early last year, it's still stuck super firmly near the top of my list. A gory and thrilling adventure with our boy Kurt Kunkel at the wheel. We can't go wrong. If you like weird and unconventional fun and you just want to have a good time and not take something too seriously, I would say watch Spree, because I love this. Number 13 is Promising Young Woman, directed by Emerald Fennell. If you haven't heard of Promising Young Woman by now, it follows our badass protagonist Cassie, who is played by the incredible Carey Mulligan, my bae. Not my bae, actually it's Mumford & Sons' wife. It's not like the whole band's wife, just like the main one. Like the singer. I don't know, my mom was very excited about this. It follows Cassie as she gets full messed up in bars and clubs and waits for predatory men to sweep her up and then try to do the deed with her while she's intoxicated. And of course the kicker is she's not actually intoxicated, so she terrifies them and she threatens them and basically is attempting to thwart them from ever doing this to another girl, which honestly, like, she took a hit for the girl, and I respect that. Why she does this, we don't know, but from the very beginning, we can definitely sense this deep-seated rage and anger in her that basically screams revenge. Aside from the insane premise of the movie, I would be totally remiss if I did not comment on what is one of my favorite parts of the movie, the soundtrack. I press play on this film, I'm hearing Boys by Charlie XCX. I'm already sold. You could just show me a blank screen for the rest of it, babes. I'm done. I'm good. This was it for me. My biggest kind of issue with this is it was kind of like the black best friend stereotype that we get with Laverne Cox. Her only real purpose in the movie was to kind of serve as Carey Mulligan's, you know, moral compass, you know, telling her what to do. Like, oh, you should go out with this guy. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna have Laverne, like, don't waste Laverne. You know what I mean? Don't waste her. If any of that sounds good to you, or if you're looking for, you know, just really just a good movie and those kind of dark themes don't, you know, upset you, I would definitely recommend this film. Number 12, Disclosure, the documentary directed by Sam Feder. I initially thought that Disclosure was a film specifically about trans folk, but it's actually specifically about trans representation in the media. And if you're wondering how much there is, it's not much. And if you're wondering how much of it is positive, I've got some bad news for you. As someone who isn't trans and doesn't have a trans friend, or any friends, really, this documentary pointed out to me that young trans folks themselves often don't know any trans folk. That only makes the representation that they get 20 times more important than any kind of representation that, you know, the majority of us get. The fact that almost all of it is overwhelmingly negative, it's really disturbing, to be quite honest with you. I don't want to get super in depth for this. I just think that everyone should really watch it. I think that especially if you're cis, like, there's a lot of things that you don't think about, like, and it's really easy to not think about, which is why I think that we have a duty to think about them and to learn about them. Yeah, I would say watch this. Number 11, we have none other than Minari, directed by Lee Isaac Chung. You are gonna hear me use the words beautiful probably a dozen times in this review, and that's because this is a really beautiful movie. Minari, if you don't already know, is about a Korean family who moves to a super tiny rural place in Arkansas with like an above ground, really small trailer and like an acre to a farmland. Him and his wife Monica, who is played by Han Ye-ri, are both chicken sexers, which means that they go through kind of boxes of baby chicks, sex them, males, females. We know what happens to the males. Dark. While Jacob, who is played by the super talented Stephen Young, is extremely excited about the prospect of moving and about starting over. You know, on the flip side, Monica is less than thrilled. She sees this crappy tiny farm in the middle of nowhere. Their son, who is played by Alan Kim, he has a heart murmur, so she's worried and she wants to live a little bit closer to the hospital because where their house is, it's an hour away. This is obviously a very vague description of Minari that doesn't even begin to really cover what it's about. It's just this dynamic of like, it's once again, I'm saying the words again, but it's a quiet, beautiful chaos. That's kind of the only way I know how to explain it. It's a beautiful film, and I think everyone should watch it, as I've said about most films. Number 10 is Possessor, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. Like father, like son, and I love Brandon Cronenberg's unique style. It's fun, it's flashy, it's futuristic, and it's totally terrifying. The premise of Possessor is already enough to keep anyone curious, in my opinion. It follows Tasya, who is played by Andrea Riseborough, who is a corporate assassin working for a company run by Girder, who's played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Bae, I love her. And this company completes their assassinations or missions, whatever you want to call them, by none other than dropping or transferring their mind into other people's bodies. First off, I'd be an idiot. I'd be stupid. I'd be silly if I didn't talk about the performances given to us by our two amazing 10 out of 10 leading ladies. Jennifer Jason Leigh, insane. Andrea Riseborough, this was a crazy, crazy, crazy role. This is a tough role too. This isn't an easy one because you're going, like as a character, you're going into other people's bodies. You have to mimic who they are, their quirks, their traits, how they talk, any accents, stuff like that. And then you have to go back into your own body and go home to your family. And specifically, there's a scene where Tasya's waiting to go in to see her family and say hi after work, and she's standing a few blocks back from her house and she's just practicing how to say hello, how to say hi, how to greet her son, like her very, very young son, how to greet her husband, because she doesn't really know. She's not really admitting that this is having any effect on her. Oh my god. I just spilled iced coffee on the floor. It's like mostly clean. So if psychological horror is your thing, or you know, you're just a really big Toronto stan, definitely give this a watch. Alright, number 9 is Another Round, directed by Thomas Vinterberg. So my review for this would just be Mads Mikkelsen. I don't really need to say anything else. Alright, but in all seriousness, though I am very serious about Mads Mikkelsen, this one was a journey in all the best ways. Another Round follows 4 friends who all work at a high school in various positions who come up with an idea or kind of experiment. Since drinking makes them more social and more confident, why shouldn't they try to drink a little bit every day before/during work to maintain a kind of medium-low buzz to get them through the day? The way that the entire flow of this movie just felt so smooth, despite some of the plot being massively serious and dark, it managed to make itself fun and almost soothing in a very strange way. The last thing I will say about this movie is, if this is really what happens in European high schools, then I don't know why I went to a Canadian one. I should have just moved. I don't know why my dad immigrated here. He should have stayed in Europe. This was a mistake. Okay, number 8, we have Wolfwalkers, directed by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart. So this movie was perfect. This was an amazing movie, phenomenal, wonderful, but I actually got really depressed after I watched it because all I wanted to do is turn into a wolf and run around with my dad, Sean Bean, in the forest. But alas, I am a 22-year-old who works at Starbucks, so we can't always get what we want, right? Alright, all jokes aside, this is one of the 3 Irish folklore-based movies from Cartoon Saloon. And even though I was super nervous to watch this because Song of the Sea was like amazing, like I wasn't gonna think that anything else could top that for me, but it did. It was so good. So I had nothing to worry about. The movie follows Robin and her dad Bill, who is a slightly higher ranked soldier, played by Sean Bean. Hey. As they try to keep each other safe in the grey, miserable castle walls with the less than fair Lord Protector governing and judging their every move. Bill's goal is to obviously keep his daughter safe, but once Robin hears the legend of the Wolfwalkers and meets one herself, things begin to change for the both of them in a very, very, very big way. This was really just a lovely, lighthearted film with like very, very big Lorax vibes. It's, in my opinion, it's a wonderful movie. Number 7 is Soul, directed by Pete Docter. Soul gave me all the feelings of being a kid again without the sad, nostalgic twinge I normally get after watching a film like this. It follows Joe Gardner, played by the iconic Jamie Foxx, on the best and also worst day of his life. Joe, who is a middle school music teacher, has been in love with jazz his entire life. His dad loved jazz and passed it on to him. and ever since it's been his dream to play professionally. One day he gets an opportunity from a former student to audition to play for Dorothea, who is played by Angela Bassett. Once again, a living legend, ladies and gentlemen. She was amazing. And on the same day, right after a successful audition where she hires him on to play piano, he falls into a manhole and dies. Obviously, it's not graphic because it's Pixar, but it's kind of, you get the idea. He falls and then like a little soul pops out of Joe wearing his little hat. Because he like wears this like fedora thing. Joe is the only man who can wear fedora, okay? If you were thinking about it, don't. Just don't do it. For everyone. Like not even just you, but just for me, I don't want to see that. The name Soul was not just chosen randomly, okay? Because boy, does this movie have soul, feelings, heart, just every emotion is packed into this film. And it's done in a good way, in a beautiful way. Me throwing out that beautiful word again. But here it is. Number 6 is Undina, directed by Christian Petzold. So this was a sleeper of a film, to be sure. I watched this super last minute, like last week, not knowing anything about it except that it was German. And I was saying Undine because that's how I thought it was pronounced until I watched the movie and then I realized it's Undina. They don't say it like that, but I did, and that's kind of how it's pronounced. It's not Undine. I'm just aggressively North American. Undina is a historian who gives lectures to various tourists and people just visiting this Berlin museum about Berlin's architecture and the history of the building of the city. At the beginning of the film, Undina's boyfriend breaks up with her, men are trash, and she's devastated and almost can't believe it. If, you know, you're down for some kind of almost mythical but not really mythical romance with kind of sad dramatic aspects, just toss her on, see if you like it. Despite the folklore that didn't necessarily travel outside of Petzold's homeland of Germany, it's a beautiful and also tragic romance at its core, subtle in almost everything except for the character of Undina, played by Paula Beer, who is incredible. Like, just a freaking dynamite, a firecracker. Good for you, Miss Beer. Hope you had a beer to celebrate. Number 5. All right, we're into our top 5, boys. So number 5 is Crypt Camp, a disability revolution directed by Nicole Newnham and James LeBrecq. This one I'm finishing. There's nothing more I have to say about this, just that it's essential. Just that you should watch it right now. There are things in this movie where I was like, this is fake. Like, there's literally no way that happened. Just that, the crazy thing is, this is just about their fight for legislation, but most of the movie's about the camp. It's called Camp Gen Ed, and it was just down the road from Woodstock kind of area, and it was literally a camp run by hippies for disabled, like I believe children, teens, maybe young adults, I don't remember. But it was a camp for them. Even though this is a documentary, this felt more magical than any other movie I've seen this year, without a doubt. It's an essential watch, I believe. I truly do. It's also on Obama's watch list. He put it on his like 2020 best of movies. Okay, we know that Obama is a war criminal, but like, kind of cool, I guess. Number 4 is Palm Springs, directed by Max Barbakow. When I first saw advertisements for this, an Andy Samberg movie with Christian Milioti and J.K. Simmons and a Kate Bush song, there's not really a whole lot to say about this movie. I feel like you kind of know if you're going to like it, just kind of based on the general premise alone. It's a Groundhog Day-esque rom-com that takes place at a mediocre motel in Palm Springs, where Sarah's sister, Sarah, who is being played by Christian Milioti, is about to get married. Then, due to a bunch of unfortunate events, Sarah gets caught in a time loop with the very immature Niles, who is played by Joanna Newsom's husband, Andy Samberg. I will say that people I know who aren't even Andy Samberg fans, I know they're insane, but bear with me, they still really, really liked the movie. It's not at all like Lonely Island-esque comedy. It's very, very different. All in all, this was a fun and light film with its own kind of twisting coil of darkness underneath, and all that plus J.K. Simmons just absolutely going for it really made the film for me. Number 3 is Nomad Land, directed by Chloe Zhao. Well, as my favorite review for this said, in the mighty words of David Ehrlich, and I quote, "One of the best movies ever made that opens with a title card about a reduced demand for sheetrock." We know that there was this big town, and it was kind of built around this huge, massive production of sheetrock. And after a while, sheetrock became less and less popular, and the mine was eventually closed down. And the town subsequently shut down as well, since that was the only thing really keeping the town alive. Then it just kind of goes to Fern. We're following Fern and what happened to her after the town closed, what she did, how she lived, and where she went and why. And yeah, that's kind of all you need to know, I think. One of the coolest things about this movie is that while we are following the life of Fern, played by Frances McDormand, who just absolutely blows it out of the water, we are simultaneously being introduced to the entirety of the nomad community, making us feel and Fern feel less alone. Chloe Zhao is incredible. This is a really incredible movie. Damn, just never really knew a town that made sheetrock would make me cry in my bed. But you know what? It's 2021. Anything can happen. Am I right, boys? Anyways, I'm seriously gonna cry just thinking about this movie, so we gotta move on here. Number 2 is Never Rarely, Sometimes Always, directed by Eliza Hittman. Boys! Oh boys, this one hurt. I don't even really want to give away kind of what happens in the first like 15 minutes with this one. I will say that the performances by the 2 lead actors, Sydney Flanagan and Talia Ryder, were insane. I mean, this movie shows a perfect example of how and why women have to grow up so fast. These girls are, I think they're 15 or 16, and they have to travel out of, like, to a totally different state in order just to get what legally should be theirs, and they have a constitutional right to. The last thing I'll say, that scene, you all, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's literally a 10-minute uncut shot of Flanagan, just some of the most powerful acting I've ever seen. Ever. It drove me to tears. Number 1, the bad boy we have all been waiting for, The Sound of Metal, directed by Darius Marder. Whenever I plan to watch something that's known to others as the best film of the year or just held in really, really high regard in general, I tend to get nervous that it'll be overhyped for me or that it just won't be for me, if that makes sense at all. With The Sound of Metal, I didn't even have time to get nervous because it just sucked me in right away. The first few scenes of Riz Ahmed, who plays our protagonist Ruben, sound checking and setting up his band and just living his life, and then shock. All of a sudden, we hear it, right? We hear what Ruben hears in those scenes, and just this loud piercing, it's like tinnitus or something. But I've gotten, like, we've all gotten it before, but not like that. And then everything is quiet, and it gets quieter and quieter, and then he goes out and performs in a heavy metal show. So it's very different to, you know, be born deaf versus to lose your hearing. And obviously Ruben, who is a musician, values his hearing, you know, a little bit differently than say I would, or, you know, the rest of the general population would. As a whole, this film really takes you from one extreme to the other. A glimmer of hope slowly turns into a dull rock, and vice versa, and we get this balance of Ruben's kind of, this is gonna work out and this is gonna work out and this is horrible and everything is horrible, and he's just kind of like that, and that's his character, and he's thrust into this world that is so different than anything he's ever known. Riz Ahmed, who plays Ruben, is incredible. This is my favorite performance of the year, by far. Riz Ahmed takes the character of Ruben from start to finish, doesn't slow down for a moment, doesn't let go for a moment. He was him down to the very end of it. He was Ruben. And it was real, man. It was real as real gets, and it was phenomenal. It really was. So, watch this movie, watch all these movies. Petition Riz Ahmed's Academy Award winner for me. Definitely think he deserves it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen any of these, if you like them, if you didn't like them. This has been super fun. I'm now really excited because I get to watch one of my favorite movies of all time, which I'm gonna show to you. It didn't come out this year, so it's obviously not on the list. It's called Tony Hawk in Boom Boom Sabotage. Really excited. Please ignore the dollar sticker on there. As we know, price doesn't necessarily dictate worth. Also, yeah, it's still in the wrapping, so I haven't seen it yet, but I know it'll be good. I know it'll be good.
It was once the brainchild of that weird.
Dogs for their bones. I like a baby! Nobody likes clowns and penny whistles! Nobody!
A 10.